All right, let's talk about Justin Fields. Is it time to move off of Justin Fields? Is he a bust? Well, let's get into it. Let's have the discussion about how do we feel about him now, and then what do we do from that? Because I think there's two questions. One is, what have we seen from him at this point? And then question two is, okay, once we figure out how we evaluate him, where do we go from there? So let's start off with what we've seen from him. I'm going to use PFF grades. I know not everyone loves PFF grades, but I always feel like at the very least, it's a group of people's opinion on a player. Might not be perfect, but it's better than just, randomly speculating, and you can put a number on it. So, yeah, let's just get into it. So here is the Pro Football Focus page. This is, his stats on the top of the screen, or I guess the middle of the screen. You see his grades for games 1 and 2 of this season. At the bottom, you see his yearly grades, and you see that this year has actually been his worst year so far, a 56.3 total grade, whereas, in 2022 and 2021, they weren't without issues, but were significantly better. You did see kind of steady improvement from year 1 to year 2. Year 3 so far, it has not gone particularly well. Now, I think also worth mentioning just the passing versus running grades in previous years. 2022, a 91.5 rushing grade and a 54.4 passing grade. So, for example, while the passing grade, if it was this year, would be around 30th best, the running grade brings his total grade up to the point where it would actually be pretty good. It would actually be, around it would be 19th best, just above Derek Carr, just below Brock Purdy so far this season. So, maybe not superstar level, but solid. But again, you look at the two grades at the top of the screen, a 60.9 grade against Green Bay, and actually worse against Tampa Bay, which does match my evaluation. I said that as well. I thought the overall Bears offense was worse in week 1, but I thought Fields himself was worse in week 2. But this chart is what gets you maybe not excited, but it's what kind of gives you a little bit of hope if you're a Bears fan. This is his game-by-game Pro Football Focus grade from 2022. And you see, he actually got off to a worse start that year. It was really bad. Those first 2 games were both in the 40s, and then game 3 was still in the 50s. So he was not really showing much until week 4 looked a little better. Week 5 looked actively good, had a down performance in week 6, but then kind of from week 7 on started to really show a lot of flashes. Even the passing game, which wasn't overly consistent, you did see in weeks 13 and week 16, he did have good graded games then. Those were kind of the 2 performances that were actually like, significantly above average. He had a couple of slightly above average games, but it starts to show, okay, there's some flashes here. He's been a consistently good runner of the football, starting to show some flashes passing. Now, this chart is, I do something just about every year where I look at where quarterbacks need to be to look like they're about to be successful. And it depends on where you rank in terms of Pro Football Focus grade, to how well that predicts, people in the past, how well have they ended up being good or being bad. So for Fields and Lawrence, actually, they ended up in the same bracket, although Fields was on the very low end of that bracket and Lawrence was on the very high end of that bracket. But both of them kind of are in a position where it's like, hey, could go either way. Although, again, I would say Lawrence has a higher chance than Fields, just given where they were last season. So, last year, he was, in my opinion, a wild card. And that's how I viewed him coming into this season. So what does this all mean? To me, I kind of think that this means we do have to give him a little bit more time. Again, if Fields gets hurt for the rest of the year, I think then you move off of him. I think that's fine. So if you had to make the decision today, I think I would probably look to get another quarterback or at least get a plan B. But you don't have to make the decision today, so who cares, right? You're going to have him play 15 more games, and I don't think it's out of the question that he will look better in those games. In fact, I guarantee he's going to look better. I just do. This isn't who he is. He's had, even by his standards, which aren't exactly superstar level, he has had bad games for his standards, and I don't think it's fair to run him out of town. I don't. I think there's the other question, which is maybe he's not a bust. Maybe he's not just a garbage player, but if you notice that chart I put in front of you, I made 4 categories: good, great, good, some value, and bust. And the reality is, Typically, to win a Super Bowl, you either have to be good on your rookie deal or great in getting paid. Like that typically has to be what you do. There are exceptions, but those are rare. So for Fields, he's on the third year of his rookie deal now. So, and the fifth year option isn't cheap. So the reality is, probably only have one more year of cheap Justin Fields production. And if he doesn't turn it around in a massive way, even if he ends up being a pretty solid player, which I don't think he's a garbage player. I really don't. I think there is value in him, just like how I think that there is value in Mitchell Trubisky, right? Like, which is the comparison that's getting made. Trubisky wasn't someone who just couldn't belong in the NFL. Okay, the Jets with Zach Wilson played bad enough. They were able to quickly realize, well, let's just get another quarterback. And they got Rodgers. That doesn't always work out that way. But, at least you could say, okay, we need to move off of it. You don't want to have the Jameis Winston situation of him literally being in the NFL for 5 years and teams, in his 7th season, he was still getting a shot as a starter because the Saints were like, well, maybe we can make it work. You still kind of convince yourself year in and year out. Played 5 years for Tampa and 2 years for New Orleans. Justin Fields, to me, could end up being in that boat as well of like, while he's not necessarily being terrible, although he, again, has played bad weeks 1 and week 2 of the season, while he might be able to get back up and play well, the issue is not, can Justin Fields get back to playing what he was last year? The issue is, we wanted to see Justin Fields improve upon that. Like last year's Justin Fields still isn't really good enough. Maybe it's just good enough, but it's probably not good enough to be an actual championship contending team. He had to be better than that. And the fact that we're wondering if he's even going to be that again, I think is the real concern. So should the Bears move off of Justin Fields? At this point, what do you have to lose? You're going to play him 15 more games. So while we all like to try to have these discussions now, the reality is I still don't think we know. I still think there is hope for Justin Fields, albeit not a ton of hope at this point. I think the most likely outcome is I think about Sam Darnold. It's a very similar scenario of everyone who was a Sam Darnold defender, of which there were plenty. I did not like when the Panthers traded for Darnold and was called a hater. A lot of people didn't love that take from me, which, remember, they gave up a 2nd and 3rd round pick for Darnold. It wasn't like that there was no one who thought that Darnold could work. And for me, the way I viewed that was Darnold was in a terrible situation with the Jets. He also didn't play well on top of it. That's how I view Fields now. The situation is a situation. There's no denying that, but he's also making enough mistakes on top of it that even if he was in a great situation, I don't know if he could even, be a Brock Purdy type who can be great in a great situation. I haven't seen that from him yet. Maybe it'll change. We'll see. Maybe it will change, but for now, my guess at this point is he's going to end up being someone who's in the league for another decade, but probably not a starter, in a few years' time. But again, he looked worse at the beginning of last year, so we'll see how it works out. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.